Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. When you visit a pharmacy in the UK, you buy over-the-counter medication. That's medication where you don't have a doctor's prescription. You know, when you go to the doctor, he gives you a bit of paper, you take that to the pharmacy, and then they make up the recipe, which they then give you. Over-the-counter medication is the stuff that you take without the doctor's authorization. You simply go to the pharmacy, you have a headache, and you ask the pharmacist for a painkiller. You ask, what can I take for a headache? They give you something, you pay for it, and you leave. This is called over-the-counter medication because it doesn't need any authorization. That desk which exists between you and the assistant is called the counter, presumably because that's where they used to count money. These days, it's simply a desk with a card terminal sitting on it. Over-the-counter medication is very, very popular, and we use this phrase to discuss what we can buy over the counter and what we can't buy. So, for example, if you live in Europe, you may be able to go to your local pharmacy and ask for antibiotics. Some people call them antibiotics. When you buy antibiotics in Europe, sometimes you can buy them over the counter, especially in eastern parts of Europe and Russia. However, here in the UK, you can't buy antibiotics over the counter. You have to have a doctor's prescription. Strangely, though, we do have some other really weird rules about over-the-counter medication. If you want access to a particular medicine, you should ask the pharmacist whether that medicine is available over the counter or not. For example, I remember once I went to the doctor with a throat infection, and he gave me medication, and I remember the name of that medication. So now I don't go to the doctor if I have a throat infection. I just go to the pharmacist and I say, excuse me, can I buy this medication over the counter? And I give them the name. And I know that they can, and the pharmacist will say, yeah, no problem. Here it is. And it's often cheaper as well. Because if you go to the doctor in England and they give you a government prescription for medication, it's one fixed price, usually per item, which means that you pay £10 each for every bit of medication that he gives you. But if he's only giving you, let's say, vitamins, you could save a lot of money by going to the pharmacist and saying, can I buy this medicine over the counter? Because the pharmacist might say, yeah, we can sell that to you for £5. So it's always worth checking to see whether medicine is available over the counter. It doesn't really matter in places around the UK. Let me explain. In England, doctor's medication has a fixed price. I believe it's around £10. In Scotland, doctor's medication is completely free, so you don't pay anything for it. I'm not sure about Wales and Northern Ireland. I believe medication there is also free, which means that England is the place where you have to pay for it. So you can fully understand why some people would want to check on the price before they paid £10 for the government prescription, if they can buy it over the counter. Another strange thing about the UK is the fact that we can buy opioids over the counter, even though we can't buy antibiotics. Now, opioids are a particular type of medication which has a kind of morphine-like effect. It makes you sleepy and drowsy and can be highly addictive. When you buy one of these over the counter, the pharmacist will warn you these are highly addictive, don't take them for any more than up to 3 days. And they will also give you other bits of advice. To avoid this and to avoid making you feel uncomfortable when you're buying them, especially if they know that you buy them all the time, because some people do, then often they will simply whisper under their breath, hey, 3 days only, 3 days only, which is their way of saying, okay, I've warned you, you take these for no longer than 3 days. But I know, and you know, that you're taking them for more time than that, which you shouldn't. It's kind of like a hidden, weird moral message. So these opioids that you can buy over the counter, of course, are in very low doses and are usually mixed with other types of medication. So you can ask for them, but you have to be very careful with those because they can have major side effects. The UK government is currently looking at opioids, which you can buy over the counter. One of the reasons is because there are particular products which they know are being abused. Currently, if you go to our NHS website, you can have a look to see which ones they're planning to ban. We're probably one of the only countries left across Europe which can sell these kind of things over the counter, and there is concern about one of them in particular. 95 people have already died this year by taking this particular product. The question then is, well, why would you allow opioids to be sold over the counter if they're so dangerous? Well, there's a couple of reasons why they're available over the counter. One is simply because for people who are very serious drug addicts, when they're coming off a drug, they sometimes turn to these minor drugs in order to help them to go through the process of withdrawal. So in places where there's, let's say, a high number of drug addicts, to have these other types of opioids available is very, very important. In fact, they could save somebody's life. So having them available is important, and it's only one type of opioid that they're currently thinking about removing. So it's very interesting. You might be very surprised to know that many people who live in the UK do have issues with drugs. And if you've ever taken a night bus in central London at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., you'll notice that the lights inside are very deep blue. It's the same if you go to a public toilet in the UK. In some parts of the cities, the lights are very, very blue. And it's a little bit strange. And the reason why it's like that is because it's to stop people being able to inject themselves with drugs. Because if the light is very blue, it means that the person won't be able to find the vein in their arm to use something like heroin. So to make some opioids available in a very low strength kind of a way, I mean, we're not talking about very strong medicines, is a way of saving people's lives. But some of them, an increasing number now, are getting prohibited because they themselves are causing problems for other people. So just to sum up then, over-the-counter medication in the UK, if you know exactly what you're looking for, can be very, very strong, and you should be very careful. On the other hand, usual over-the-counter medication, the stuff that you just lift off the shelf and buy, is usually what we call over-the-counter. But many stronger things are available over-the-counter too, and it's worth having a discussion with the pharmacist to see what suits you. Unlike other countries in Europe, our pharmacists will only intervene if you ask them. So, for example, in Spain, as I remember, going to the pharmacist was a little bit like going to the doctor. If you simply asked for a medication, you kind of had to go through this interview first as to why you wanted it. Whereas here, you walk in, you ask for the thing, you're given the thing. There isn't really anybody who cares to tell you about or to ask you about what's wrong. They will only warn you about the medication you're taking and the effect it might have on you. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and we were comparing our experiences across Europe of going to pharmacies. And he was telling me that he went to a pharmacy in Spain and he asked for some kind of opioid-based medication, and they looked at him like he was a drug addict and they threw him out. And so he went to another pharmacy and they quite happily sold it to him. And there was some kind of very grey area that was very unclear as to what he could buy and what he couldn't. A grey area in English, we use that to describe something which is unclear. So certainly in Spain, I know that there's a very grey area regarding what you can buy and what you can't buy over the counter. I think it depends who you speak to and also their understanding of the law. There seems to be a lot of confusion about that. A lot of tourists here who are leaving to go to other countries are often quite shocked when they discover that the medicine they're asking for across Europe simply isn't available. We often forget that in the UK we're quite fortunate with our over-the-counter medication, especially the stronger stuff. So just to clarify again, over-the-counter is something that you can buy without doctor's authorization. There is another phrase in English which is nothing to do with pharmacies, okay, which is called under-the-counter. It's got nothing to do with over-the-counter medication, but we use that phrase when something is being sold or given to us illegally. Okay, so in any shop there is a counter, but if something is sold to you, let's say without paying tax on it, or it's something which you shouldn't technically be allowed to buy. It's given to you under the counter, which is a way of describing something which is a little bit dodgy or bad. But I want to stress again that that has nothing to do with pharmacies. All of our pharmacies are very legitimate and honest, and under-the-counter sales would not be tolerated because, of course, it's a criminal offence. So, next time you're in the UK and you really need something to take away pain, and you need something a little bit stronger than usual, don't be afraid to have a chat with the pharmacists to see what's available to you. Or if you know the name of your medicine, ask the pharmacist to check to see whether it can be purchased over the counter. That's it from me. I hope you found this helpful, and stay safe. Let's talk again soon. Bye.